Today's topic has been my most requested topic to do an episode on this year so far. And I love when you guys are messaging me, whether it's on Instagram, TikTok, you're replying to my emails and letting us know what would really be helpful for you. Because after all, the show is being done for you guys, and I delight in doing it. And I appreciate you trust me to give you the advice and the wisdom and the empowerment that you come here for. And it's what to do when you feel like you're failing, when it feels like everything is falling apart, when you feel like nothing is working right, you feel so alone in the world, you feel like you're the only one. And it's like this free fall down a rabbit hole, and there's nothing to grab onto. You don't even know where to even begin. And it just is this horrible, helpless outer body feeling. I have been there many times in my life. There is no escaping that feeling in life, especially if you're someone who's truly in the game of life and you're building a business, you're going after new things, you're working on your personal growth. This is part of it. And there's a different way to look at this stuff that I'm going to give you a perspective shift on. And there's really five things that I want you to consider. And then you can decide if you're really failing. But one thing I want to make sure you hear from me right off the bat is before the big breakthrough happens, before the big whole whoosh of abundance comes in, before the big transformation, the big change, before you find the diamond, before all that happens, fun fact, it's going to feel like your world is falling apart. And this is after coaching more than 150,000 people worldwide and me speaking from my personal experience. And I want to remind you of that. It's not cute, but as long as you stick with it and you keep showing up until it works, this is a sign that you're closer than you may realize. If you're tired of hearing the same old basic mindset and motivational fluff talk, you've come to the right show. Welcome to Project Me with Tiffany Carter, the podcast, where we dish on everything from managing that crazy brain of yours to manifesting abundance to my straightforward, actionable steps that will make you major money online. Now, I'm not your typical multimillionaire entrepreneur. It takes a small village to keep my anxiety and depression in check. I'm inherently disorganized with an intense obsession with office supplies. Your girl here is a digital marketing content expert who's generated over $200 million in sales. I promise by tuning in twice a week, you will get a much needed refreshing dose of truth, clarity, and cash making advice. Now let's get to it. What up, my people, my posse, my fellow crazies? It's your host, Tiffany Carter, and this is the show that is going to help you grow your business, your bank account, that big, beautiful brain of yours, your abundance, your relationships, and everything in between. Ooh, I know that feeling very well when it's like the walls are closing in on you and the very thing you want feels further away than ever, and you just can't grasp at anything. And it's such a horrible feeling. And I know I wish all the times that I have hit this point, and I still hit this point today, that there was some resource I could go back to and listen when I'm losing my damn mind to get my nervous system regulated, to get myself back on track, but in a realistic way. Because when we're in that kind of a space, the last thing I know you want to hear is fluffy stuff. Oh, well, all hard work pays off. Oh, it'll work. It'll happen. Oh, just manifest it. Get in the embodiment of the energetics. And you don't want to hear that shit. What you want is concrete evidence and validation that you are going in the right direction. You want some clarity on, should I zig or should I zag? Am I even going in the right place? Am I failing at this, or is this part of it? And as long as there's someone you meet or a gnome on your hiking path going, I know this path seems kind of sketchy, and it seems like you're going to end up falling off the end of the cliff here, and there's no markings, but I'm here to tell you this is the actual path. It's just not the most weathered and taken path of most people, which is why the abundance that you so badly want is at the end of this path. So few people will take it. And that's why it doesn't look like you're really on the path. I hope that made sense. And why did I pick a gnome of all things? I like saying that word. I have a really random, super random tangent story. So, one of the big things that happened to me when I was a TV newscaster, it was very exciting for me. Now, most people in the TV business, they're excited, like you want a national story, right? Because even if you're at like a small like market station, right? You get on a national story, you could even be like on the Today Show, you get on like the big nationally syndicated shows. So then there's all sorts of like fighting in the newsroom of who's going to get that lead story. And I was put on this, they call it a fluff piece, which is like that usually airs, it's in the D block. It airs at the end of like the news, which is like supposed to be like some happy thing, which is kind of interesting, right? Because the whole thing in news, it's a terrible line, but it's if it bleeds, it leads. Yeah, you can see why I needed to get out of that business. So all that negative stuff is up front. And then you got sports, you got weather. So there's that stuff. And then there's like one happy story at the end, like to make up for all of it. And this story was really whack. And I was kind of thinking, well, that's not really a good sign I'm getting this story. And it was about, I believe it was a couple, and they had a garden gnome. And I think it was like a gnome, but it was like a frog gnome. And they chose to take this thing all over the world. And this was before Instagram. And I'm pretty sure there was Facebook. I can't remember, but they chose to take this frog gnome all over the world. And I'm sure there was another component to the story, like one of the two, people in the partnership like had cancer or something like that. And they were, doing these bucket list travels. And they were taking this gnome and taking pictures and video of this gnome in all these places all over the world, like the Egyptian pyramids, the Eiffel Tower, eating pasta in Italy. And it went viral. And that couple lived in one of the cities where my local market was. So I went to these people's homes and got to meet the frog gnome and the couple. But I think at this point, I'm pretty sure it wasn't one of the two of them had since passed. So it was even more profound. I believe they put pictures all over the table of their partner. And it was lovely though, because it was like a beautiful tribute and a legacy, as sad as that is. And that was my like claim to fame. So when I would go to like the grocery store, people would be like, "Oh, you did the gnome story. Oh, you did the frog story." And I was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Great." So I went through all this journalism school and all these internships, and I am well known for the gnome story. I didn't really get it then because I had not done any inner work. But now when I look back at that, I'm telling it to you now, I smile because I was known for covering a story that went nationwide that made people smile and feel good. And what a beautiful, delightful thing. Instead of being known as the person who covered that, like, mass killing or whatever. I would rather be known for that. But at the time, I was like, well, I'm certainly not going to end up in network news for my gnome story. Yes, I digress. Okay. So I actually, you know what? That did have a good point to where I was going with this. That came out of my mouth for a reason. Huh. That was pretty cool. Okay, here's the point. Here's the tie-in. I thought that I was not on the right path. I thought I was failing when that happened. Granted, I was thrilled to get like a national exposure, like CNN picked it up, Network NBC picked it up, blah, 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 blah. And I knew that like having exposure in that way was a good thing for my career, but it was like kind of like going viral for the wrong thing. It's not like I knew, oh, great, now I'm not going to be taken seriously as a, journalist because it's a frog gnome story. But the reality is that I wasn't failing at all. That's what it looked like to me. That's what my ego wanted me to believe. What I was really doing was in pure abundance and making millions and millions and millions of people smile and feel good as a result of the story. And who knows how many people took that beautiful creative idea to leave a legacy for someone who is sick, or taking a parent or a grandparent on their dream trips and doing something fun like this, because then there were people who started doing different fun things in this way, and they got that idea from seeing the story I did. That's everything but failure. But my ego wanted me to believe that, like, I just ruined my career because I'm the frog gnome girl, and that's not the case at all. So that did have a point. Yay. Yay me. I'm not failing at this podcast. So there you go. Let's go over some 5 powerful truths you need to know when you're feeling like a failure, when you're feeling like nothing is working. Okay. For a perspective shift. And then you can determine at the end of this if in fact you're really failing, or if it's your ego wanting you to believe you're failing, your critical parent in your brain, if it's your inner bully that's wanting you to believe that, because that nasty critical voice in your brain is trying to get you to quit. And so it's going to try to convince you of any sign of things not going well, or multiple things happening of not going well. It's trying to make you go, see, you should turn around. You should turn around. You should quit. You should stop. And this is when your resilience has to come in. This is when your faith and your trust and surrender has to come in. This is why it is almost impossible to have success in any area of your life just being dependent on doing it on your own, because those voices in your head will get so loud and so cunning and so manipulative and so creative that it'll take you off course, and it will either take you years longer to get to where you want to go, or you'll end up just quitting altogether, or you'll be one of my people who does the push pull. Your foot's on the gas, it's off the gas, on the gas, off the gas. And that's living in purgatory, and it's not working. So I want you to really determine by the end of this, okay, this is that nasty voice in my head. This is the devil, this, whatever. This is like the darkness trying to pull me back into settling, because settling in a way feels safe. Expanding is scary, but it's also exciting, and it can also feel dangerous. But then constricting can feel safe. You can hide. No one can see you. No one can bother you, but it's really not safe because you're unhappy. You're unhealthy mentally and physically in that space, and you're in scarcity. You're in the opposite of abundance, but it can read that way to your nervous system. So, number 1, what feels like a failure can actually just be the beginning. So you have to fail until you get good, right? Like, there is no way that you can't make mistakes and not end up being better at something, whether it's you learning a new app, you learning Canva, you learning how to act, how to podcast, how to make videos. I mean, I remember when I first started, when Instagram Reels came out, and I was just, I was messing with it. I remember the text would be out of the screen, or I would do an edit and it's like, I would cut myself off and I'd go, oh, that sucked. But now I know it has to be here and it has to be there. And oh, I won't do that again. And that's like a tiny example. But then there's bigger things in life when it comes, to personal relationships or red flags that I've missed in people. Once you've been really burned by missing a red flag or making a mistake that's cost you a lot of time and energy and money or heartache, you likely don't make it again, or at least you don't make that same one again. So it's actually happening for you. There is no way to not feel like a failure when you're building something new. Whatever it may be, it would literally be impossible. So it's actual evidence that you're doing the damn thing. Playing it safe, playing it small, only doing things that you're already good at, whether it's you're naturally good at or it's a skill set you've developed over time, that's not growth. That's you just staying in your little tight zone and not taking any risk and not learning anything new. What would you say to any kid, whether you have kids or if you were mentoring a kid who's upset because they're wanting to learn how to ride a bike and they keep falling and it feels scary and they don't want to keep getting up and doing it? You wouldn't say, oh, you don't have to do it anymore. Maybe you'd say, like, well, let's take a break today and we'll start again tomorrow. But I would like to think you would say, this is part of it. And you have to fall forward. That's just how it works with anything in life. Like, what has happened that your palate for discomfort, your palate for falling, your palate for mistakes has gotten so small that you're like, well, I'm not into it now. I don't like it now. It's like, well, I don't know anyone who really, really loves doing something in the beginning when they're terrible at it. Just ask any golfer. They're the hardest people on themselves. It's like, but that's how you learn. I'm a tennis player. You learn how hard to swing, if it's worth going after and getting that ball. You learn when you can tell that's going to be out. You learn by making mistakes, by losing points, by losing the game. You see what I'm saying? It is no different when it comes to our personal development, our wealth development. But somehow your brain has gaslit you enough into a period of fog. I call it fear, obligation, and guilt, where you're not thinking clearly. And this episode is designed to wake you up in a loving way. Number 2, what feels like a failure can actually be normal. Newsflash, you don't have to be excellent at everything in order to be a success. Sometimes what feels like a failure is actually average or even above average, but it's what you think is average or above average. And I'm going to use her as an example. My guest I have on Wednesday is someone who is very hard on themselves. And she often will say things like, I'm behind, I'm failing. She's in real estate. I don't have enough listings. I don't have enough this, but she's one of the top realtors in Arizona. I will say things like, oh my God, my revenue is down. Maybe no one's really into my podcast anymore. I'm behind. Other people have a book and they have like 25 courses and I don't. When you're someone who's a high performer and a high achiever, it's all relative. So what you on a average day are most people on a great day. And this is with almost everyone I coach, especially privately, is that you think you're not doing well, you've been slacking, you're behind. And the reality is that you're such a high performer that your average is at 200%, right? Where that's someone else's best day. And you have to remind yourself of that. Also, you do not have to be exceptional or perfect at something for you to have success at it. Okay. Because that's all relative. I mean, there's a lot of things in my business model that I can use as an example that aren't exceptional. One of them is my website. I'm currently interviewing people to do a glow up on my website. I've not prioritized it, and it's not hurting me because people aren't like, I'm going to hire Tiffany because of her website. I'm not a website designer, right? Like, I don't have a perfect body. I look like a hot mess most of the time in my videos, but people aren't coming to me for that. They don't care. That's not what's important. Or maybe like your videos, you don't look as cute, or it's not this, that. No one cares. You're caring. That perfectionist in your brain, that critical parent in your brain is being so hard on yourself. And here's another fun shift. You being too perfect and having all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, that will actually repel a lot of private clients. That'll actually repel a lot of buyers. That will repel a lot of ideal people that you want to work with, because then they psychologically interpret your stuff as, in order for me to work with her, in order for me to buy from her, in order for me to learn from him or her, I'm going to have to be perfect. I'm going to have my shit together at all times. I'm going to have to look perfect. I'm going to have to be this, that, or the other. It's your imperfections that make people feel more relatable to you, that make you come across less intimidating and therefore more approachable. And therefore, trust is built faster. And what do I always say? The more trust you build, the more sales that you have, because none of us are perfect. We're all mere humans. So if you're always presenting as perfect, that's actually a big part of the problem. And before we dive in to number 3, listen, you've got to make a money move. This is why I call it Make Your Money Move in May. I have a flash sale for $200 off my famous money course, Make More, Work Less. This is a no-brainer. It is designed in 7 days or less to transform your money story, to get to the root of your money blocks, your money resistances, all of the noise we're talking about today that's in your head, addressing it, where it comes from, and then rewiring it so that it no longer messes with you at the same level. It's never going to completely disappear, but this program is designed to teach you in a simple, straightforward, fun way of how to actually manage it so that you can be a master of your money noise when it comes up. It doesn't end up throwing you off course where you end up disappearing and not posting for days, or where you end up spend hours in a spiral, or where you're in analysis paralysis and then start procrastinating and get so far behind. You add up all the times that you do that stuff. Think about how much, aside from just time you're wasting, but wasted energy and all of the money that you could have been generating during that time. We're going to tighten that gap. So imagine if even that got cut down by 50%, how much you would get back in an ROI on this. This is a no-brainer. And if you want to see all of the reviews on it, there's some on the actual page, projectmewithtiffany.com/make more work less. The link is in the show notes, and it's also in the description here on YouTube. But you can go to my Instagram account at Project Me with Tiffany and look in the highlight section, and you will see hundreds and hundreds of reviews from this money course and exactly what has happened for people. There's people literally saying, I've had 20 years of therapy and I have never been able to get to the root of like my success blocks, my money blocks. And I had this happen by module 2, straight up. And that's not just one anomaly. You'll see it on there. And listen, if you find resistance to doing a course like this, yet you're like, oh, I'm going to do a course on going viral, or I'm going to do a course on how to grow on TikTok, or I'm going to do that. That means you need it even more. Why are you resisting unpacking your money stuff when that is the thing that's ultimately blocking you? I'm not saying you don't have messaging problems, packaging problems, pricing problems. I'm not saying you don't have that going on too, because I wouldn't know unless I'm looking at your stuff. But even if you have all of that on point, if foundationally we're on toothpicks, it ain't going to work. Or you're only going to make so much money and you're going to keep hitting a glass ceiling and get paralyzed and stuck in a certain zone, and you won't be able to go past it. And you want to know how I know this? Because I've been there more than one time. So this program is designed to come back to anytime you start hitting another abundance ceiling. I go back and do the exercises in it, and I will have my clients do that. It doesn't matter if your abundance ceiling is now at, $1 million a year, 3 million a year, whatever it is, it's still a ceiling, and there's still something that's coming up that you need to go back and need to work through. The work never ends when it's coming to our own personal development. To think that it's a one and done thing, or, oh my God, I've spent all these years doing this thing. This is our life's work. This is part of it. We have to have a perspective shift on it. So go take advantage of it. This flash sale ends when May ends. So make a money move. I do not want you ending up at the end of this year. We're halfway through the year. I don't want you ending up at the end of this year where you were last year, and you have to make a move right now. We're at the halfway point. So what's it going to be? You know what to do. Okay. Number three, what feels like failure is often actually growth in disguise. Here's an example. I'm going to give a personal and a professional one. A personal one would be I'm going to use it from a client that I have that has now gone and gotten into another relationship post divorce. I think this is her third one. And it's ended and she was upset. And I'm not a relationship coach, but she was venting to me because people vent to me about their personal stuff because it all ends up tied together. And she's like, I can't believe I ended up with another, toxic person. Like, what is my problem? Blah, 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 blah. I've done all this work. And how am I not seeing this? And I feel like a failure and I feel like I'm going backwards and I feel like so far from being, from having what I want in that area of my life. And I said, but look at what you did. Look at how quickly you got out of this and how quickly you recognized it. So I know it feels like failure, but you actually ended this as soon as you confirmed those red flags and your hunches. You didn't waste any more time. You got out of it and you didn't end up in this like weeks long spiral of it. You regrouped. And I said, it looks like failure and it feels like failure, but it's actually a very clear piece of evidence, undeniable evidence of your growth. So it's how you're looking at something. So now let's go into a business thing. You've put something out there for a launch, okay? And maybe it's your second or third time launching this thing and it still isn't hitting. You're like, oh God, when am I ever going to have these big launches I see people talking about? Like, I have a pretty good audience. I know what I'm talking about. I've even invested in learning how to do it, blah, 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 blah. And you get all in your head. Well, let's unpack it. Is this launch better than your last launch? Are they consecutively getting better? It might not be at the growth rate you want it to be at or your ego wants it to be at, but could you see that you are getting better and better in time? My guess is the answer is yes, but you might go, well, yeah, maybe I sold like 2 more spots, or maybe I had a little more interest. So that's still better. That's still progress. And don't think for a second that that's going to be your growth progress going forward. Don't say, oh, because I'm growing, this is a random number, but because every launch I've done, let's just give like a low number. Every launch I've done is only really, an improvement of like 5 to 10%. Then your brain starts going, well, God, look at how long it's going to take me to get to a 6-figure launch, a 7-figure launch based on this. That's not a reflection of it. That would be like saying in social media, all of your videos are at like 200 views. And so look how long it would ever take me to have a video that has 10,000 views. That can happen overnight. And it literally does. And there's a shit ton of evidence for that. And same with your launch. You can have in product launches in multi-billion dollar companies too. They can put out this product, they can put out that product, but they put out the 6th product and that product is like it just hit, it went viral and it put the company on the map. There's a lot of evidence on this from music artists who've had several albums out and none of the songs hit, and then their 5th album, there's a song on there that hit and then that blew up all the other albums too. You're no different. So just know that you're seeing a pattern of growth. That doesn't mean now the next time you launch, because you're implementing the stuff that you've learned from the other launches, you could end up at a 40% increase the next time. So stop looking at it as an indicator of failure. Usually you're saying you failed because you don't like the divine timing is not going on your desired ego's timing. It's not fast enough. Listen, I don't like it either. I want all of it now. I want Spotify calling and giving me a $50 million podcast deal like yesterday. That would be amazing. But that doesn't mean I'm failing because I don't yet have that. That's us trying to control our destiny, trying to control the process. Perhaps part of why this is happening and your growth is slow is to get you frustrated enough to go, I know I'm in the common denominator here, and there's probably something more at play, and it's not just strategy. And I know I need to do work around money mindset. I need to do deeper abundance work and worthiness work. And that's what's going to get you to do my damn make more work less course, which then you'll laugh and go, I should have done this from the beginning. Okay. Number 4. What feels like failure means you're so close to success. This is a Thomas Edison quote. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. So it's said that it took him 10,000 attempts to invent the light bulb. I know a lot of people that I've personally coached, and then people we can even watch on shows like the Shark Tank, who have spent years doing various iterations of products, of recipes, in order to get it to a place where it's perfected. That doesn't mean they're failing every time that they put together a protein muffin recipe that's vegan and they've made this, I don't know, 2,000 times. That doesn't mean that they're failing. They're actually getting closer and closer to getting the perfect thing. This is what happens when you look at consumer packaged goods behind the scenes, especially of companies who have like a heart that really do want to put out the best. They're not just looking for a quick buck, whether it's makeup formulations, whether it's clothing designs. I can't tell you how many of these things end up, so to speak, on the cutting room floor because they don't cut it. Something's not right. Something doesn't feel right. The color is off. Same with digital products. For what I do for you guys behind the scenes here, I'll be like, nah, that's not quite it. No, not it, not approved. We've got to redo it. We've got to refine it. This doesn't mean it's a failure and it's not working. We are having these micro failures to get us closer to the actual thing. Okay. Do you guys see what I'm saying? You just need to dig deeper and build that resilience muscle where it's like, I am so determined for this to work. I'm going to keep doing these micro failures until it hits. And it's not cute. This is why most people quit. How many people would really, like, if that number is like 10,000 for Thomas Edison, how many people would be that stubborn and that determined and that discipline to keep going when you're at even the 4,000th try and it's not working? I'm sure there were many iterations of the airplane with the Wright brothers. And while you're like, Tiffany, I'm not inventing a light bulb and I'm not inventing a flying car, it's no different. I'm behind the scenes of multi-billion and trillion-dollar companies as a consultant. My other business I've had for 16 years is a digital marketing and branding company in the health and medical sector. I get to see this stuff. Major brands that you consume. I can't tell you how many formulations, iterations from the actual product to the packaging, even for like digital offers that go with it. Same with books. Anyone or if you've written a book, there's a lot of edits that happen. So are you a failure at a book because your publisher or you have to keep doing more and more edits until it gets right? No. Is it annoying? Is it frustrating? Is it humbling? Yes. I hope now you're getting to the point before we get to number 5 where you're like, okay, I see what you're saying. I'm actually not failing. I really hope you're seeing that. Number 5. What feels like failure can actually be the ending. And what is an ending? An ending is really a new beginning, but that doesn't mean the ending is painful. An ending of a friendship, an ending of a relationship, an ending of a particular offer that you put out there, an ending of a business, an ending of a job, an ending of a mindset belief you've been holding on to, an ending of a habit, an ending of a behavior that's no longer serving you. It tells us it's time to end this part of the journey. And it is so painful, right? Like I can be so stubborn and it actually works for me because I can be relentless on something and I can stay too long on something. But if you keep trying to make something work, and I think a relationship is a perfect example, but I also recently, let's use an example of intermittent fasting. It worked in the beginning when I did it. So then I kept doing it. I kept doing it. I kept doing it. I don't know. I think I've done it for 2 years or something now, and it stopped working. But I didn't want to believe it was that. I thought it was something else. I just kept doing it. And it got to a point where it was kind of undeniable that likely the intermittent fasting was something that was no longer working for me. And it was so painful. I was paying such a big price for it. I was in a lot of pain and discomfort. And that is what finally made me go, I need to release this. Maybe it served me for a short period of time, but now it's no longer working. Now it's costing me in business. My first 5 years in business, I did not hire anyone to help me. I was of this belief that if you're a real entrepreneur, you do it yourself. You forge ahead. I don't know where I picked up that from. I have no idea. Probably my mom. And did it work for me initially? Kind of, sort of. Did it start costing me time, energy, and money and basically almost quitting to an extreme? Absolutely. But what did that allow me to do? It allowed me to be in enough pain to go, literally, I'm failing. This business is failing. All of this is failing. And it got me to a point of waving the white flag of surrender and finally and truly investing and hiring someone to help me regroup and grow my business. And that was me hiring my first business coach. But I end up feeling like I was failing, and was it failing? Absolutely. But it was also the beginning of me going about things a different way and letting go of that old belief that I have to do it alone, that I'm a loser if I can't do it alone, I'm less worthy if I can't figure out alone, and then me being afraid to trust people. And I've never looked back. And that's why I'm such an advocate for saying to you guys, like, I know it can seem like it makes sense to going about things on your own because you want to keep more of the money that you have. And unless you have a ton coming in, it can be uncomfortable to put money going out. But the cost it's going to take for you to get to where you want to go on your own is like a million times more than if you just did the thing and spent the money and went all in and treated your business like a business. But I had to be in a lot of pain and to the point of totally quitting in order to do that. I hope you don't have to be at that point, but I know a lot of you end up getting to that point. And let me tell you, even when you do have a lot of money in the bank and your business is bringing in a lot of money, as are both of mine, you want to go and grow it and you're investing at a higher level, whether it's in ads, whether it's employees, whether it's in coaches, whatever. It's scary too. It's just all relative, right? Like I have a lot of money going out right now. Okay. And it's scary, but I have an evidence bank of knowing that when you are intentionally putting your money towards growth, I know it always comes back tenfold to me. Not necessarily in my ego's timing, but in divine timing. And I know that, and that's how I calm my nervous system down. So I really want you to take a look at that. Is that even what felt like failure in a corporate job? I know some of you have been wrongfully terminated. I know some of you just have a crappy boss, or they've changed your goals and it's miserable there, or it's not the same anymore. Maybe you had someone cheat on you and a relationship ended. That is actually happening for you. That doesn't mean it's not terrible. That doesn't mean it's not painful. If it wasn't for these times in my life when things have been ripped away from me, I wouldn't be at where I'm at today. It wouldn't have forced me to go into a new avenue. It wouldn't have pushed me off of like a trail, a hiking trail that didn't really have many signs, that didn't look as safe and weathered. It didn't look like a sure bet, but it pushed me off there because the route I was on wasn't working, and it'd be an insanity to keep going like that, to keep going and keep trudging ahead in a direction that is not yielding you what you want. And it's not been a week at it. You've been at it a while. Okay. Now you're insane. Now it's the law of diminishing returns. Now you are losing every day you keep going on that path. You might as well go on the other path. You might as well take the risk. You might as well do the thing, because the path you're going on, the comfort path, it ain't getting you anywhere. And you know that. And if you're like, oh, wow, this is a lot to take in. And I know it is. I know it is. And this is meant for you to listen again and again and again. The failure part, even the feelings and the pain around failure, ask yourself, what is the medicine in this? I hate when people go, so what's the lesson or the silver lining? No, what's the medicine in it? And I like the word medicine because medicine doesn't always taste good going down. Medicine also has side effects, especially potent medicine. That's why you have to weigh the risks and the benefits of it. And I don't want to take away from the fact that, like, you're not in extreme discomfort and pain right now. I know how painful that is. You can go back and listen to episodes when life has given me a big ass dose of medicine that I did not like the side effects of. But what comes on the other side of that is the freedom you want, the expansion you want, the money you want, the life-changing abundance you want, the people you want, the relationships you want, the joy you want, the pleasure you want, the peace of mind you want, being able to exhale and feel safe and secure. It's all on the other side of that. And that's where your faith comes in. You know, if you trust me, you can trust that I'm shooting it straight for you. Okay. Sometimes you have to borrow trust from other people when you don't feel it at the moment. Have trust in a higher power, in angels, in the universe, in God. This is part of the plan. There is no plan that only involves pleasure. That's why we have yin and yang. It's pain and pleasure. You wouldn't be able to experience pleasure fully without fully experiencing pain, and vice versa. You wouldn't be able to truly relish and delight in the abundance if you haven't experienced scarcity. Both are required. It wouldn't feel like abundance without knowing what it feels like to be in scarcity, and so on and so forth. You've got this. This is part of it. You are nuts. You are crazy, or you wouldn't be listening to this show. You know, you're temporarily unwell, and that's a great sign that you're going in the right direction. Keep showing up until it works. When you want to pull back, I want you to double down. Go grab my damn money course. Make more, work less. It's $200 off right now. It will be the best $497 that you have spent. I feel really, really confident in that. And it's not just me saying it. Again, you can go to the Instagram highlight and read what hundreds of people have said. I'm showing an example of the workbook that goes along with the video modules in here. It's designed to be fun. It's designed to make you want to do it, because I know how easy it is to back off from stuff that kind of goes deep. And it's designed so that you're going to want to dive in, because the relief you get, the lightness you get, the results that you get while you're doing it are undeniable. And I can't wait to hear all about it. Wishing you great health, wealth, and worth as always. Love you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please write a 5-star review on iTunes. Not only will this make me super happy, but it will allow more listeners to find our special show. Simply help me help others.